Hi guys, we just finished our physics unit, which we broke into 2 units. So the second half was mostly about electromagnetism. Physics is the study of motion, and we spend a lot of time on that. But now we're going to move into chemistry, which is the study of matter. Just like we had to define what motion was when we did the physics unit, we need to do the same thing for the chemistry unit. So stop for a minute and think about what is matter. So you should either download or take out your note sheet, and you're going to fill this in as you watch the video. So first fill in from the previous slide, physics is and chemistry is, so you have those notes for later. And then you're going to move on with me to the next set of slides. For each picture that I show you, you're going to ask yourself, do you think this is matter? So you're going to write yes or no in each of the boxes in the middle. And then later we're going to go over them and you can write what the correct answer is. It's really important that you hold on to this sheet for our class discussion that we're going to have. So if you don't have it, it really puts you at a disadvantage to understanding the discussion. Okay, first thing, Mrs. Stracuzzi. Is Mrs. Stracuzzi matter? What do you think? While you're thinking about it, you should pause before you move on to the next frame. What about sunlight? Is sunlight matter? Not the sun, but the light that it gives off. What about that? Think about that one. What about plant cells? Are plant cells matter? What about clouds? Nice, fluffy clouds. Are clouds matter? What about sound? Is sound matter? Not the actual speaker, but the sound that you hear. Is that matter? What about the planet Jupiter? Is Jupiter matter? What about bacteria? Are bacteria a form of matter? How about something really small, like dust? Little particles of dust, are they matter? What about heat? Not the sun, not the thermometer, but heat itself. Is heat matter? What about gases like oxygen? Not the clouds or the sky, but the oxygen itself, or any gas. Is that a form of matter? Before you go on to the next slide, make sure you filled in all of your answers, because the next slide is actually an answer sheet. I'm going to go over all of them with you. And it's really important that you have your own ideas down first before you come and look at mine. Okay, so here are the technical definitions for matter. Matter is anything with mass and volume. And that's not very helpful if you don't know what mass and volume are. And in my experience, students do not know what those words mean. They might be somewhat familiar with them, but they're not 100% sure. I cannot stress this enough. You will do terrible in this unit if you do not learn the difference between mass and volume. It's extremely important. Mass is similar to weight, but it's not the same thing. Your mass is your resistance to motion. We measure it on a balance. A balance determines whether or not something can be moved on one pan and the other pan goes up, kind of like a seesaw. Volume is how much space is taken up. That's a totally different thing from mass. So in order to be matter, you have to both resist being moved and take up some space. And I have a rule for this. I say that if something has mass and volume, then you could take an empty balloon and fill it with that something. And the walls will expand because the stuff you're putting in there pushes the walls of the balloon outward. So let's use that test, as silly as it may seem, to do each of these things. Okay, if we try that out on the first picture, which is me, you'll find that yes, you can make a balloon's walls expand with me because I have both mass and volume. The next one on your sheet is actually sunlight, and these pictures got a little out of order, so bear with me. Sunlight is down here on the bottom, right there. And can you fill a balloon with sunlight? Can you take a balloon and shove some sunlight in there and have the walls of the balloon expand? And does sunlight resist being moved? Does it have mass? I hope you said no to these two things. Sunlight is not matter. It's energy, and we'll talk about that next. Sunlight does not resist being moved. It doesn't take up any space. You can't fill something with sunlight. You can shine a flashlight into a balloon all day long. The walls are not going to expand. The next one on your sheet is the one in the middle between the two I just did. That's the plant cells. Plant cells are really, really small, and they're living things, so sometimes people think they can't possibly be matter. People sometimes feel like living things can't be matter. But we already said that I was matter, so I'm a living thing, right? Remember, the rule here is it has to take up space, and it has to resist motion. Small things like plant cells don't take up a lot of space, but eventually you get enough of them together in one place, you make a whole plant, which does take up some space and does resist motion. So plant cells are matter. The next one on your sheet is clouds. So clouds seem very insubstantial. It feels like a cloud isn't really there. You feel like you can just kind of put your hand through it, and you can, but there is something there. Clouds are actually collections of liquids and that have been sprayed into the air, sort of. Like if you were to take a spray bottle and spray some liquid into the air, that's what a cloud is. And clouds do actually take up space, and they do have mass. However, if you were to take all of the liquid that's in a cloud and compress it down and put it inside of that balloon, you could probably fill one balloon with one big cloud because it's actually pretty spread out, the whole thing. The next one on your sheet is sound, which is over here. Is sound a form of matter? Does it resist being moved? Does it take up any space? Absolutely not. Sound is another one of those forms of energy. You cannot fill a balloon with sound. You could take a balloon, put it near your lips, and start like talking into it, and the balloon might inflate a little because of the air you're pushing into it, but that wouldn't be the sound that's making the balloon expand. That would just be the air that comes out of your mouth when you're talking. On the other hand, Jupiter, right next door over here, does take up space and does resist being moved. It is definitely a form of matter. Bacteria, same thing. Bacteria are tiny, like those plant cells, so you may not realize this, but they do take up space and they do resist being moved. You just need an awful lot of them before you start to even notice that they're there. But just because something doesn't have a lot of mass or a lot of volume doesn't mean it's not matter. And that kind of goes for dust as well. Dust can be really tiny, but if you get enough of it together in one place, you sure could fill a balloon with it. You could fill a balloon with bacteria too. I don't recommend it, but it could happen. Heat, on the other hand, is not a form of matter. Can you think why? What does it not do? It doesn't resist being moved, and it doesn't take up any space. Sometimes when I say this, students tell me, no, I could fill a balloon with hot air. True, but it would be the air that's filling the balloon, not the heat. If you cooled that balloon down, it would still have air in it. So removing the heat would not change anything. Heat is not a form of matter. Gas, on the other hand, is. This kind of blows a lot of people's minds because gases, like oxygen, are invisible. You can't see the oxygen in the room, but take your hand and wave it back and forth in front of your face, and you will feel that it resists being moved. It pushes back against your hand. Not a whole heck of a lot, but it does. And it takes up space, and you know that because you could definitely fill a balloon with any gas you want to. So there you have it. Matter is anything with mass and volume. And notice that the three things on this list that are not matter are something else. They're energy. And that's going to be really important as we move forward in this unit. Okay, see you guys in class.